Here we go. This PlayStation 5 reveal event. We're at 1 minute. Oh God! We saw a bit of the Xbox the other day. Seemed impressive. There's some interesting shit they were doing. Some fast loading. They brought back memory cards. We're gonna see Bloodborne 2. We're gonna see Bloodborne 2 3, and then we're gonna see Bloodborne 2 4. It's weird because like PS5, I'm more excited for it, and we saw the Xbox only a couple days ago. The next box, the Series XX, and it seemed okay. I was like, okay, some of this stuff seems interesting. Some of the game switching seems interesting. But it just didn't get me super excited. I wonder if anything about the core system of the PS5 is gonna get me excited. I wonder if they're gonna talk about crazy, hyper-extended backwards compatibility. That's what I want. Like, give me some crazy-ass backwards compatibility.
For the PlayStation consoles, that period lasted through PlayStation 3. A powerful and groundbreaking console, but also one that caused quite a lot of heartache, as it was initially difficult to develop games for.
Absolutely.
So, starting with PlayStation 4...
Dana Carvey over here telling us how we have to feel about a PlayStation 3.
Here's what I had for those three consoles.
I've been hearing about this, how they want the PS5 to be like,
time to make a game.
Jump in immediately, right?
And it may take them 6 years or so to realize.
Not a ton of time to figure out how to use the system, jump in immediately and just start making games.
Ultimately, I think we've ended up with something under a month of getting up to speed.
Oh shit.
That feels like we're striking about the right balance.
30 seconds.
Later today about our philosophy.
21.7 seconds.
We support zlib decompression on PlayStation 4.
It's so weird that the big thing of this generation is going to be SSDs and
50% higher effective.
I've been playing games on SSD on PC since like 2010.
Wait for the game to load, wait for the level to reload every time you die, and you wait for what is euphemistically called...
When I die?
What if we could have not just an SSD, but a blindingly fast SSD? If we could load 5
dick-suckingly fast SSD.
What would change? Same for a reload, you're immediately back in the action after you die. And fast travel...
Is Bloodborne 2 over here? Is that Bloodborne 2?
The primary reason for an ultra-fast SSD is that it gives the game designer freedom.
Freedom. the way he looked into the eyes of the audience.
If you figure that it takes half a second to turn, that's 4 gigabytes of compressed data.
I feel so bad for everyone that doesn't really understand what the hell, like how rendering speeds and field of view rendering and like all this shit actually works.
For example,
LOD models and all that stuff. People are gonna be like, what the fuck am I looking at?
That removes most of the
When's FIFA?
By the time you realize you need a piece of data, it's much too late to go out and load it. So system memory has to contain all of the data that could be used in the next 30 seconds or so.
To be honest, it's an incredible miracle that games like Uncharted 4 and Final Fantasy VII Remake look the way they do on a PlayStation 4.
On PlayStation 5, though, the SSD
that hardware is so insanely old, it blows my mind.
That when you realize you need
those games are so incredibly optimized for their hardware that it is...
no need to have lots of data parked in systems.
It makes no sense. It is mystical wizard shit.
For example, there are 6 levels of priority.
This is going to be really sad for loading screens. You got to feel bad for loading screens. They've been around since like mid-90s and shit.
Requesting a few gigabytes.
Now these guys are trying to get rid of the loading screen. They're trying to make them jobless.
An enemy is shot and has to speak.
Poor loading screens. They're going to become a Twitch streamer or some shit. They're going to be pushed to the corner, to the very limit.
The key question for us was, is that enough? I mean, it's tempting
no,
to add more, but
it's not enough.
Back to the Flash controller. On the other side, it connects to our main custom chip via 4 lanes of Gen 4.
You got to admit that Mark is a very good speaker. Right, this guy's been talking about tech a long time. And you can tell that he loves it, right?
This lets us bypass traditional file I/O and its bottlenecks when reading.
Yeah, that's what it is. They opened up all this space around the I/O coprocessors and the DMAC so that you can fit at least 50 pounds of weed in your PS5.
We will be supporting certain M2 SSDs. These are internal drives that you can get on the open market and install in a bay in the PlayStation 5.
Really?
As for which ones we support and when, I'll get to that.
Holy shit, they're not doing their own proprietary SSD?
Custom I/O unit, just like our SSD does. So they can take full advantage of
That's great. What the hell? That's
the
crazy.
I was talking about.
That is a literal
Here's
one-up
the
on the
catch, though.
Xbox.
That commercial drive has to be
Xbox has their own proprietary thing. Sony isn't. This is like, what?
Flawlessly with any M2 drive.
Sony not doing their
When I
own
gave
weird
the
memory
wide
card
overview
thing?
last year, I
What?
said that the PlayStation 5 SSD
Uh-oh,
was
that's
faster
big,
than
dude.
any
That is a
M2
big...
At the time, commercial M2 drives.
That is a big
used
answer to what Xbox is doing.
And 4 lanes at a
So long story short, Xbox has SSD expansion,
with PCIe
but you have to like use their own little weird memory card things. You have to buy their own proprietary SSDs.
5 gigabytes
PS5 will have SSD expansion, but it's going to be SSDs that are available on the market. They're going to tell you which ones they support, but it's going to be ones that are not proprietary Sony-made SSDs.
Which drives will physically
This might actually make the system a bit cheaper. That is true.
Appropriately high in our testing.
M2 drives aren't cheap. They're like the top of the line SSDs right now,
a
but
bit past it. So please hold off on getting that M2 drive until you hear from us.
yeah, don't buy M2 drives yet.
Back to our principles.
Don't buy them like they're
Balancing
toilet paper, you
evolution
stupid
and
assholes.
revolution. This continuous improvement in AMD technology means it's dangerous to rely on teraflops as an absolute indicator of performance. And CU count should be avoided as well. In the case of CPUs, we all understand this. The PlayStation 4
Is this
and
sort of
PlayStation
like,
5
we know we're
each
not going to
have
match the numbers of the
CPUs, but
Xbox
we
here,
never say
so
that the capabilities
don't look
and
at those.
performance are equal.
Don't look at
It's the same for
teraflops.
CUs.
That number's not
For one thing,
important.
Running PS4 and PS4 titles at boosted frequencies has also added complexity. The boost is truly massive this time around, and some game code just can't handle it. Testing has to be done on a title-by-title basis. Results are
But first-party
excellent.
titles like
We recently
Bloodborne.
took a look at the top 100 PlayStation 4 titles as ranked by playtime, and we're expecting almost all of them to be playable at launch on PlayStation 5.
Okay. All right.
With regards to new features, as I said, our strategy
Knack
is to
didn't
try to
make
break
it.
new ground, but at the same time not to
Knack didn't
require
make it.
use in
Yeah,
the case
technically
of
only
optimization,
partial
such as
PS4 backwards
aborting
compatibility,
processing
not
vertex if
full
all geometry
backwards
is
compatibility. It's a case-by-case basis because running the clocks too
PlayStation
fast will
5
actually
has a
mess the games
new
up.
unit or
Yeah, every single FIFA and Madden game will definitely make
Or
it.
you can use
That'll be
the
like
new
40
intelligence
games,
in Veristar.
right? If it doesn't have
data
PS1 through
and
3,
RAM
then
is
your
all
backwards
of it.
compatible, like your
There's a specific
big
set of
George Foreman
formats
grill
you can use
PS3s
that variation
is still the
on
greatest
same
system of all
leading
time.
edge concept.
PS3
Then,
playing
in
full
your
backwards
shell program,
compatibility,
you use a
PS1,
new
2, and 3
instruction
games
that asks
is
the
still the
intersection
greatest
of
video game
check
system of
array
all time.
against use
I think the
equates to
PS5
roughly
will
58 PlayStation
actually
4s.
play PS1 and
It
PS3
is
games,
a
but they might be
fairly
saving that
sizable
announcement, or they might wait till later.
Fine.
For what's
Which
going to
is
be
to say,
inside this system, it's really not hard to emulate PS1, 2, or 3 games.
We
That doesn't
supply
take a-
generous amount of
that's not like a big
and then
hurdle to
increase
jump
the
through.
frequency of GPU and CPU
You know,
until
and maybe
we
not
reach
at the
the
start, but that's not a
capability
crazy
of
hurdle.
CPU and CPU
How much do I think it'll cost?
and set the frequencies on that base. Which makes
500
everything
base?
deterministic and repeatable.
I think 500 base.
While we're at it, we also use AMD's smart
I think
chip
going over
technology
500
that
base
sends
is like a
any
big,
unused
scary
power from the
thing.
CPU to the GPU so it can squeeze out.
But I think there'll be a 400 model, a 500 model, and a 600 model. I think they might do 3 separate models, and it's all going to be like different varying hard drive sizes.
The concept of locality is simpler. It's just your sense of where the audio is coming from. To the right of you, behind you, above you. This can immerse you further in the game, and it can also directly...
Still won't be able to hear footsteps in Modern Warfare.
To use
Bitch is just
Dead
gonna run
Space
up on
as
you
an
in the back
example,
and then
I
shoot
know
you.
Here's how we measure NHRTF. We've taken hundreds of people through this process.
We have this
We
Stargate.
put a microphone in the subject's left and right ear canals,
This man came back
and then sit the subject
from
down
Egypt,
in the middle of an array. of
2075.
Remember when I said that they were ideal for audio? So the Tempest engine.
You know what?
has
I'm
no
starting to get to the
just like
point where
CPU.
my
All
brain
data
isn't even big
access
enough
is
to
via
fully
DNS,
grasp the
just like
situation
CPU.
that Dana
Our
Carvey's
target
putting us
is
in
that
right
we
now.
have more power
Like, even my
than the
brain,
CPU,
which
thanks
I have
to
a
the parallelism
huge
of the
brain,
GPU
like a
machine.
giant
And
fucking
then we'll be
brain.
more efficient than our GPU.
And
thanks
I
to
am
the
not
CPU
fully
architecture.
gathering everything
goal
that is
being
coming out of this man's mouth. He's talking very slowly. He's enunciating all of his words very precisely.
Is a unit with roughly the same SIMD
And it's still
power
not
bandwidth
hitting the
as
levels
all
that it needs to hit in my brain.
in the PlayStation 4 combined. If we were to use the same algorithm,
So I feel all the other people that are watching, all the other 99% of people that are watching this with brains even smaller than me, they're on the ground convulsing right now. Yeah, we need more insight. That's clearly it.
In fact, with the Tempest engine,
We don't have enough insight to know what the hell you're talking about, Mark. It's been going on for so long now that I'm just not fully grasping anything. I don't see any giant fish monsters clanging to the wall yet.
Will it come from audio, ray tracing, the capabilities of the SSD, or something else? I guess we'll find out soon enough.
Soon, but when?
Thank you for your time today.
Motherfuckers! You motherfuckers! Blue balling the holy shit out of us! Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Go home. I was at least hoping just a little bit that at the end, join us on April 10th for the reveal of the next generation. Right, something. It was essentially their GDC presentation, yeah. It was like, here's our GDC presentation. GDC was canceled. We're not able to talk about this yet. I kind of, like, we get it. Like, around when E3 was going to be is when Xbox and Sony are gonna butt heads, most likely. Mention of backwards compatibility, mention of, I think the biggest thing we can essentially grasp from this is that SSD technology and expansion on the PlayStation 5 is going to be technically easier, it seems, than the Xbox. But it's weird. I think they require M2 SSDs, which are expensive, and they're a little... they're technically the highest quality SSDs right now, but you're going to need those for your PlayStation 5, but not every single one works, only certain ones work. So the cool part is that memory expansion is not going to be proprietary. It's not going to be a Sony branded SSD that you expand your PlayStation 5 with if you need more, you know, if you need more expansion space. The cool part is that I kind of dig the fact that there is an external hard drive expansion that you can get for your PlayStation 4 games. So if you have all your PS4, you know, games that you're going to run on your PS5, they don't require you to be on the SSD because they're older games. It seems that you can run a 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte external or something like that, and then play all your old PS4 games from that external, and then save the SSD, which is obviously way more valuable in its space, for PlayStation 5 games, which is cool. Xbox is kind of doing the same thing. However, what the Xbox is doing, their SSD expansion comes in the form of these really weird tiny memory cards, like the actual no-joke memory cards that stick into the back of the system. And they are going to be proprietary Xbox sort of memory cards for the next generation. They're expansion, expansion sizes for the most part. Sorry, it's early. So that's actually kind of crazy that Xbox ended up going with their own proprietary like memory card, and Sony didn't. Sony's like, no, we're gonna tell you which SSDs will work on our system, and you can go buy those, which is interesting. That's definitely the biggest take that I got from this. But isn't that pretty whack for consumers? Absolutely, yes. Weirdly enough, most of the time Sony can be pretty anti-consumer, and they have a history of doing that with, you know, your Vita, like your PSP, like all those things having their own weird proprietary like disk storage and all this shit the years, like starting with the PS1 like memory card, the PS2 memory card, like going all the way back, you know, to the mid 90s and stuff. Sony is absolutely notorious for doing their own proprietary horse shit and having it be super expensive. So this is a very different route for Sony in terms of them allowing all this shit to be used. And it's actually a much different route for Xbox, all things considered, for them to be doing theirs too in a different way. Largely like the same thing with the Xbox reveal. You get some out of this. It's nice to see how fast the loading's gonna be. We already got an idea of how fast the loading's gonna be on Xbox. We get it, SSDs are fast. It's just that our brains aren't big enough to process all this information to the point of which I can see Bloodborne 2 running at 4K 60, or Bloodborne 1 running at 4K 60. I can't see the next generation of games yet. And I was really hoping that they were gonna give us a date or something to come back to. But it seems that they are Not doing that. That is definitely a GDC talk, right? That thing is absolutely not your average PlayStation 4 user, FIFA and Madden user sort of conference. I'm actually kind of surprised that they promoted this as much as they did. Like, there was a lot of promotion for this. And I wouldn't be surprised if, hold on a second, let me just refresh this video. 46,000 dislikes. And that's exactly what I was talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? 46K dislikes on the PlayStation 5. They gave nothing but mostly good news. The only bad news that was in there was when they started talking about like raw numbers like teraflops, and like, don't worry about teraflops. Don't worry about these numbers. This is how big it is compared to the previous generation. That was a big warning flag that we're not going to be able to hit the numbers that the Xbox will. We're just not. We're not going to be able to reach the raw hardware capability of what the Xbox Series X is going to do. And that was the big like, oh, I get what they're doing here. Okay, it's still going to be crazy, right? It's still going to be, you know, off the charts in comparison to PlayStation 4 and what the previous generation could do. The big thing now is that we need to see games running in higher frame rates. We need to see games running at more consistent resolutions. I don't care about 8K. I don't give a shit about your 8K. I barely give a shit about 4K. Dynamic resolution is fine as long as these games can run at better frame rates. And I'm so glad we're at a point now where 60 FPS is a priority, and even for Xbox, 120 FPS is a priority in most situations. So, don't give me 8K 30. No one gives a fuck. None of your... The whole reason for that is that Sony can start selling you 8K TVs, and I'm telling you, it's not worth it right now. Now I think everybody, after a week now of getting just nothing but specs and looks at the hardware, never getting nothing but numbers and teraflops and IOs and compressors and everything, I think people are ready to see some games. I think they're ready to see some damn games.